welcome back to another episode of BizBlend, the place where clarity meets curiosity and transformation begins with the right questions. So, now let's be real, dear listeners, for a second. Have you ever been paralyzed by indecision? Or do you replay scenarios in your head, like second guessing every step? Or do you wish like there was a way to actually make better decisions without the overwhelm, stress, or the self-doubt? Right? Great to think about, right? Do let me know, dear listeners, what you think about it. You can share it over social media. You can share it over podcast platforms. You can comment there as well. Would love to listen to your perspectives as well. And well, today's episode is exactly what you have been waiting for because joining us today is the brilliant Cheryl Strauss Einhorn. So, welcome to the show, Cheryl.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me to be with you today.
Lovely, lovely. So, Cheryl, like before we start, I'll quickly love to introduce you to all of our listeners. Dear listeners, Cheryl is the founder of Decisive, a decision sciences company that is revolutionizing how individuals and the organizations solve the complex problems. So she is the creator of the area method, area method, an investigative evidence-based system for decision making that cuts through cognitive bias and strengthens your judgment. So she is an award-winning investigative journalist with bylines in the New York Times, Barron's Foreign Policy magazine, and Harvard Business Review. So she's taught at Columbia, Cornell, and now brings her wisdom straight to your ears. So whether you are uh, launching a startup, switching the careers, or maybe leading a team, or just trying to make the right next move in life, then this conversation is for you. So I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Let's quickly jump with one and only Cheryl. So welcome to the show, Cheryl.
Thank you so much.
Lovely, lovely. So Cheryl, we're talking about a great topic about the decision making, problem solving, strategic thinking. So I'll quickly come to you regarding the decision making. I mean, everyone makes decisions, but uh, there are few are taught how. So how do you think that decision making is so overlooked as a skill?
Well, thank you for that excellent question. I think it's because people care about the outcome of the decision. They don't generally think about whatever that internal process is that's going on. And so I think that's why it's this field that has a lot that it can offer people so that they can feel like they know themselves better and so that they also can grow and change and be more dynamic as a decision maker.
Exactly. So, I mean, what's the biggest myth that people have about decision making, especially in the high stakes situations? What do you say on this?
Oh, that's a good question. I've thought a lot about this because I have something that I call my decision myths quiz. These are those sorts of thinkings that when we act upon them, they don't actually serve us well. So a couple of them are it's our decision alone. I think for a long time we've thought about this idea of, sort of the rugged individual who needs to struggle with these complex problems and come to their own decision. But the
Right.
truth is that there are always other stakeholders who are involved about in our decisions. And so when we realize that, we recognize that we're not alone and that we can really learn from these other people and solve our problems more holistically. I think another thing that gets in people's way is that they think I'm too busy. But
Yeah.
the truth is making decisions is how we get to the future. And our future is important. And so thinking that we're too busy may mean that we only solve part of the problem or that we solve the wrong problem. or that we have to revisit what it is because we've ended up with a bad outcome. So these are just two examples of very common decision making myths. And if your listeners want to engage more with sort of learning what are some of these most common problems related to decision making
Mm.
and see also where their superpower is, which one of these most common problems is not theirs, I would
Yeah.
suggest that they go to app.area method, AREA method.com, and they can actually take my decision myths quiz so they can learn about these common mistakes and have greater awareness so that they can
Mm.
navigate around them.
True. Exactly. Lovely. I mean, that's such a powerful reframe. I mean, decision making isn't just about guessing right; it's all about thinking smart. So, uh, yeah, I mean, I can already feel the mindset shift starting. I mean, yeah. So, uh, about the area method, like as you have mentioned, uh, so what does it stand for? I mean, for people who are not aware of, so how does it also help people solve the complex problems with clarity and the confidence?
Thank you for asking that. So, AREA is an acronym for the steps of my perspective taking process. I liked the idea of the word area because we always have an area of investigation, something that we're
Mm,
solving for. And we also think of the term area related to mapping
mm,
and the fact that our decisions always sit in a context and there's some kind of terrain. So, the
mm,
first A in area, it stands for absolute. It's from information up close on the target of your decision. Then the R is relative information, information that's related to that target. And then the E is actually for exploration and exploitation. And these
mm,
are the two parts of decision making that really involve a lot of creativity and that get beyond document based sources. So, exploration is interviewing people,
mm,
identifying good questions and the right people to ask them to so that you can understand how does the problem that you're solving exist actually on the ground. And then exploitation is where you investigate your own assumptions and judgments. And I think this is a piece that's been missing from decision making for
mm,
too long. How do we control for and counter the cognitive
mm,
biases that we all have, these mental shortcuts that help us move
yeah,
quickly, but that often prohibit
mm,
opening up our mind to new information and insight. And then the final A is for analysis, which is where we bring the pieces back together, think about failure, and make the decision.
mm,
So, if you, for instance, are thinking about a career change, absolute information from up close on the target might be the field that you're thinking about going into. Let's say it's public relations. What is public relations? What are the opportunities? And so on. And then relative information, which is related to it, is how does PR sit in various companies?
mm,
What are the different options within PR? Maybe what are the openings and the different salary ranges and the career trajectories? And then in exploration, you might be talking to people who are in PR. What's it actually like on a daily basis so that you can learn from the wisdom of other people? In exploitation, then you'd begin to be investigating those assumptions against evidence, maybe doing a pro con list is a very popular analysis tool to look at information together. And then in the final A analysis, bringing those different parts of the problem solving together so that you're really solving the problem holistically, which gives you a good chance to make sure that you are going to be successful with that decision.
exactly. Perfect. So, I mean, like, how does the area method help counteract our natural biases? I mean, the things that often uh, cloud our judgments.
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. There's a couple parts of area's value proposition that make it different from other decision making systems. First, it's a perspective taking system.
Yeah.
So each of the different letters of the word area move you into a different point of view
Yeah.
so that you are actively seeing the problem from these different perspectives. The second thing is that it builds in strategic stops. So, timing is a very important issue in decision making, and time is a very important and valuable commodity. But we don't often think about where should we be pausing in our decision making to chunk our learning and make our work for you. So, as you're going through each of these perspectives, you're actually getting a chance to see the different pieces individually and just sit in that perspective before putting it back together, which helps you to have an opportunity to individually look at and think about these pieces, breaking the problem down into smaller and different lenses. And then the other thing that it does is it builds in these creative exercises in the
Yeah.
expectation phase to challenge your cognitive biases as well. I mentioned the pro con exercise because many people are very familiar with the idea of thinking about what's good about this decision and what maybe is not good about the decision. But there's a couple other types of exercises that I've learned from the intelligence community, that I've learned from investigative journalism, where you also get a chance to really bring forward where you're making assumptions that are unfounded and to look for disconfirming
Mm.
evidence. And then the other part of the value proposition, I would say, is that it's a feedback loop. We would like our decisions and our process to move forward in a linear way. But the truth is as we gather new information and insight, we often do want to circle back because we've missed some kind of information that we could be collecting, or we haven't analyzed or glossed over a data point
Mm.
that all of a sudden becomes much more relevant.
Ah, okay. Got it. Hmm. That's amazing. And also would love to talk about your book, your new book, Problem Solver. That's amazing. I mean, the name itself is very uh I mean, it's very catchy, very important. So you explore the psychology of decision making through different profiles. So if you can also tell us about, I mean, tell us more about that, like how knowing your own problem solver type helps us uh, make the better choices, decisions. So
Yes, absolutely. So, in working with my area method with all different types of people from all over the world, what I realized is people, everybody could use it, but
mm,
people used it as they are, not as it is, meaning that there were
mm,
parts of the process that seemed easier and more intuitive for people, and those intuitive parts they ascribe the greatest value
mm,
to. So I started to think about what does this mean about how each of us solve problems? Are there a couple of different dominant ways that people approach their decisions? So that was sort of how I came to this idea of problem solver profiles. And what I realized is that there's sort of five dominant ways that people make decisions. They each have strengths and they each have some limitations to them as well.
mm,
And so I gave each of the five a fun name because
mm,
we think in language. And that way we'd have a way to talk to other people about our decisions. And so the
mm,
five are the adventurer, the detective, the listener, the thinker, and the visionary. The adventurer is a confident,
mm,
fast decision maker. This is somebody who finds it really easy to identify what they think should happen next,
mm,
and they have an underlying optimism bias to it. They sort of feel like they can go ahead and make a decision, and if it starts to go awry, the good news is they have the next decision ahead. So that's the adventurer. The detective, and I'm a detective, we're a slower decision maker generally than the adventurer. We are somebody who really likes to do research and have data. And while that's good, the downside of that is that we can get very anchored in the data that we find. We can look for and identify something that confirms a favored hypothesis, and that's not really as good or as rigorous as disconfirming data. And we can overvalue the data and underweight the people. Our next decision maker, the listener, she knows that people are very important and that their opinions actually are a kind of data. This is our most trusted, cooperative, and collaborative decision maker. This is the person who knows how to gather the wisdom of others. And the limitation of this kind of problem solving is that they can have a harder time identifying their own inner voice and what they would do on their own, as they can be swayed by the crowd. The fourth type of problem solver is the thinker. This, by far, is the group that we find most heavily represented by the people who have taken my problem solver profile. These are people who are cautious and who really want to collect a lot of data, and they can tell you the why behind their decisions. And the thing about this kind of problem solver is they tend to be our slowest and think of their decisions as the most consequential. And they really have a loss aversion. They are much more worried about a decision failing than in solving for the best possible outcome or the best outcome possible. And then our final problem solver profile is our visionary. This is somebody who is original and creative, and they often can see things that the rest of us don't see because they have a big, expansive view of what has potential. And a downside for them, or a limitation, is a scarcity bias where they can overweight something that is unique and original when something that's workaday would be just fine. So I hope you can see that each of these
Mm.
have a different thing that they're optimizing for, but they each bring a beautiful and unique lens to complex problem solving.
Amazing. Yeah. So, okay, and like once someone understands their problem, or maybe the problem solver profile, how can they apply that insight to collaborate better at
It's a
the
wonderful question. The first thing is at that same URL that I gave earlier, the app.areamethod.com.
yeah.
Your listeners can go there and they can take the problem solver profile quiz. And in just a few short moments, they would be able to self categorize themselves
Mm.
into one of these five archetypes. So the first thing is to build an awareness of where your dominant problem solving approach is. And then from there, it helps you to understand why you do what you do. Why do you think it's so important to collect the wisdom of others? Or why do you not think it's that important? Because you tend to overweight thinking about the data, for example. And then from there, you have, I think, a better sense of knowing what the other person is optimizing for in their decision making. Oftentimes, we may have somebody who we think it's a little sticky
Mm.
trying to make decisions with them. We don't really know how to enter into it. With the problem solver profile, it actually gives you a path to unblock how you can approach somebody, because now you know what kind of information to come to them with or how to frame that conversation. And it also gives you a sense of what the good creative tension is between you and the other decision makers with whom you are making a decision, so that you can use that tension to your advantage and actually bring more information together to make a better decision.
Mm. That's amazing. Yeah. It's fascinating. Like it's like personality meets purpose, and suddenly we are not fighting our tendencies, but learning to optimize them. So that's amazing. Yeah. And making the better decisions in the everyday life. So what's the one decision making principle or kind of mindset you can say, like, that our listeners can start applying today to handle everyday choices with more of clarity and less of stress?
Yeah, I think the first thing that you can do is really get clear on what I call your vision of success. When you are solving a problem, a lot of times people just hurtle into the problem without
Mhm.
thinking about what is it that actually would make for a good solution. So there's a very easy technique that I recommend that you can use, your listeners can use, whether it's a personal or a professional decision, where
Mhm.
you time travel in your mind, jump over the decision and imagine that you've made that decision successfully. What
Mm.
comes to mind? Once you have a clear picture of what that good outcome looks like, you know the very few components that you truly need to solve for, and you have a better chance of actually getting there because you haven't jumped into the problem. Now you're jumping towards the solution.
Oh, okay. Hmm. And and for those in the middle of a big life or career decisions right now, what's your best piece of wisdom for them?
The best piece of wisdom for people who are actually in the middle of their career right now, um, is to recognize that this is the main vehicle that gets you to the future, and you don't wanna sacrifice your decisions. It's really the only real agency that you have is your ability to choose,
Mm.
and keeping that in mind, I think, can help people feel like they have more control, more courage, and more opportunity to actually make the future that they want.
Okay, amazing. Yeah. So that's it, dear listeners. I mean, you don't have to solve everything today, but you can decide with the purpose. So one smart choice at a time, for sure. So Cheryl, thank you so much. You have actually made something that usually feels heavy, like decision makings, feel empowering. So that's amazing. And also at the same time, you have shown us that confidence doesn't uh, come from having all the answers, but it comes from having the right approach to the queries or the questions. So that's amazing. And for all the listeners, whether you are navigating a crossroads or maybe building a business or just trying to get unstuck, just remember this, that decision making is a learnable skill. And with the right tools, you can trust yourself to choose wisely. And dear listeners, do check out Cheryl's books, Problem Solved, Problem Solver, and Investing in the Financial Research, and learn more about the transformative area method. And before we move, I'll quickly love to ask Cheryl, like, if someone wants to connect with you, how they can connect.
Yes, I'd love that. I hope that you'll connect with me on LinkedIn, Cheryl Strauss Einhorn, and also at my website, which is Area Method, AREA method.com. I also have a podcast called the Problem Solve Podcast. So you can subscribe to that, and you'll hear there how people are making all sorts of decisions. The ethos is there's not a right way to make a decision, but there likely is a right way for you. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Perfect, perfect. That's really, really lovely. So, dear listeners, with this hope, until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and remember that the most powerful decision you can make is to decide to decide. That's lovely, right? So, dear listeners, this is your host, Avik, signing off from Healthy Man, Healthy Life. Here's to the better thinking, braver choices, and the brighter outcomes. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.